It took us almost 5 hours to reach that old beach house in the Outer Banks, North Carolina. We had planned the trip for summer break, me, my cousin Tyler, and my girlfriend Megan. The place was way more remote than we expected. A beach house sounds beautiful, but in reality, this one was different, an old, weathered wooden house standing alone on the edge of the ocean. Its walls damp from the salty air and the floor creaking with every step. The nearest neighbor was half a mile away, and all around us was just wind, waves, and a strange kind of silence. As soon as we stepped inside, we felt the air cold, musty, and heavy, the kind you find in really old houses. But this felt more intense. Tyler joked, "This feels like the kind of place people accidentally rent in horror movies. I laughed, but Megan stayed quiet. She had found an old family photo on the dining room wall. Every face in it was scratched out. I didn't think much of it at the time, but that photo stayed with me. The first 2 days went by okay. We hung out at the beach, cooked dinner, stayed up watching Netflix. Everything felt normal. But on the third night, while we were sitting around the fire pit outside, Megan suddenly went quiet. She looked around sharply. "Listen," she whispered. "I hear footsteps. Like someone walking." Tyler and I paused and tried to listen, but we didn't hear anything. "It's probably just the waves," Tyler said. "Sometimes they sound like that." Megan didn't respond, but her face said she was scared. Later that night, Megan was alone upstairs on the balcony. I was making something in the kitchen, and Tyler was watching a movie inside. Suddenly, Megan called out loudly, "Ryan!" I ran upstairs, and she told me she saw someone standing in the corner of the balcony, just a shadow. Not moving, but when she looked again, it was gone. Tyler came up and checked, but there was no one there. We laughed it off, thinking maybe she just imagined it. But the fear in Megan's eyes didn't look fake. The next morning, when we opened the door to go outside, something felt off. I looked down and saw barefoot tracks in the sand, wet footprints, like someone had walked up from the ocean. But the creepy part? The footprints only led into the house. There were no footprints going out. That meant someone came into the house during the night, but never left. I stood there silently for a moment, then called Tyler. He looked at them too, and for the first time he wasn't joking. "Dude, this doesn't look like a prank," he said quietly. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe the wind messed up the sand or something. But honestly, I was starting to feel uneasy too. That night, as we were getting ready for bed, Tyler admitted he'd been noticing weird stuff too. He said the night before, he thought he saw someone walking upstairs on the balcony, and for a second, he saw a shadow too. "I didn't say anything," he said. "I didn't want to scare Megan more." For the first time, we started to think maybe Megan hadn't been imagining things after all. We planned to set up a camera the next night to see if we could catch anything on tape. But before we could even do that, something happened that completely shook us. Around 2:30 a.m. that night, I woke up and realized Megan wasn't in bed. I figured she might be in the bathroom, but after a few minutes, she still hadn't come back. I got up to look, and Tyler was already awake. We both started searching the house for her. The living room lights were on, and in the corner, Megan was sitting on the floor upright, completely still. Her eyes were open, but it was like she wasn't seeing anything. Her face was blank, like she was in a trance. I shook her shoulder and called her name, "Megan," but she didn't respond. After a few seconds, she took a deep breath and softly said, "He saw me, but I didn't see him." Her voice was cold, like it didn't even belong to her. That night, we all slept in the same room, with the lights on. Something had changed in Megan's eyes, and for the first time, I truly felt maybe we weren't alone in that house after all. Ever since that night, everything started getting stranger and darker. When we picked Megan up from the corner of the living room, she was completely unresponsive, like her body was there, but her mind wasn't. Her eyes were wide open, but completely unfocused. When I held her hand and softly called her name, she slowly turned her head toward me and whispered in a chillingly flat voice, "He saw me, but I didn't see him." That one sentence cut through the silence like an icy wave. After that, she went quiet and didn't really respond for hours, like her ability to think had just shut down. We kept all the lights on and stayed in the same room that night, but the fear we felt wasn't normal anymore. It was something else, like something was with us, just out of sight. The next night, I woke up with a strange feeling like someone was quietly walking around my room. I shot up in bed, but no one was there. The air felt freezing, and the window was slightly swaying, like someone had just let go of it. Tyler said he also heard something fall, but when we checked the whole house in the morning, nothing was out of place. Everything was the same. But that same now felt different, like the house was silently watching us. We started hearing whispers from the wall, soft, barely their voices. Sometimes it sounded like someone was saying a name, other times it was a question. "Why? Are you here?" Megan said the voices were right in her ears. One day she practically screamed, "He's talking to me, right next to my ear." Tyler and I couldn't say anything. We were terrified. We tried to stay logical, telling ourselves we were just exhausted, but our hearts knew something wasn't right. That afternoon, Megan found an old guest book tucked behind a drawer. It was dusty and filled with handwritten entries from previous guests. One read, "We felt watched every night." Another said, "Shadow by the upstairs balcony, we left early." And one just had 3 words, "Don't trust the silence." Megan closed the book slowly and just sat there. Her face looked like she was trapped in a maze with no way out. Later that night, Tyler started acting strange. He was sleep-talking, saying over and over again, Get out of her, ... I shook him awake, and though his eyes were open, he didn't seem to recognize me. When he finally came to, he remembered nothing, but he was soaked in sweat. I gave him water, and the only thing he could say was, "It wasn't a dream, ... it was real." I didn't ask anything else, because honestly, I didn't have answers of my own. Megan was getting worse. She wasn't eating, and she kept saying someone was watching her all the time, from the balcony. She told me, "He's there every night now, and he's not hiding anymore." I'd look out the window and see nothing, just the dark night and the sound of waves. But her eyes looked like they were seeing something we couldn't, something that was much closer now. One night, I was jolted awake by Tyler's scream, "Megan!" I ran to his room and saw Megan standing silently by the window. She looked like she was sleepwalking, but her eyes were open and locked on the glass. As I got closer, I saw her reflection in the window. And right next to it, another shadow. A tall, hazy figure with no face, just a shape, like someone standing beside her. Not physically, but present. I couldn't say a word, and Tyler just froze, breathing heavily like the fear had taken his voice. The next moment, Megan turned around, looked at us like nothing had happened, and calmly walked back to her bed. That night I decided we couldn't stay anymore. This house was no longer safe. We made a plan to leave first thing in the morning, packed up quickly, and waited for sunrise. But when I went to tell Megan, she was sitting quietly by the window again. I told her, "We're leaving tomorrow." She smiled, but it wasn't a relieved smile. It was empty. She whispered, "If we leave, he'll come with us." And that was the moment I truly understood the fear that had been leaking from the walls, hiding behind doors and quietly crawling into our reality, something that wasn't just a part of the house anymore. It was part of us now. The next morning, we all agreed we couldn't stay in that beach house another second. Ryan, Tyler, and Megan, we had stayed up all night, just waiting for daylight. As soon as the sun came up, we started packing in a panic. The house felt too quiet, almost like it knew we were about to leave. But just when we were about to go, Megan was nowhere to be found. Her bag was packed, her shoes were by the door. But she was gone. Tyler and I searched the entire house, every room, the balcony, kitchen, bathroom, but she wasn't anywhere. Panic kicked in, and we ran outside. And that's when we saw her, standing alone by the shore. Barefoot in the sand, just staring out at the ocean in complete silence. Her back was to us, and she looked like she was waiting for someone. Tyler called her name, but she didn't move. I walked up to her, touched her shoulder, and she quietly said, "He wants me to stay." Her voice sounded different, flat, emotionless, almost like it wasn't hers. Her eyes were completely blank, like she was there, but not really. We dragged her back to the house and forced her into the car. She didn't resist, didn't say a word, just sat there staring ahead. As we pulled away and the house disappeared. Behind us, I turned back one last time, and I swear, I saw something on the balcony. A figure, completely still. No face, no movement, just a shadow watching us leave. My stomach dropped, but I said nothing. I knew if I did, Megan might break down. Tyler was silent too, and the only sound between us was the quiet hum of the road. A while later, as we drove down the highway, Megan suddenly turned to look out the back window and started crying, no sound, just tears. I asked her, "What's wrong, Megan?" And she whispered, "He's not alone anymore." Just 4 words. Then she went completely silent again, like her soul was left behind. And only her body had come with us. That we decided to stay at a nearby hotel that night, thinking we were safe now. But that night, Megan started sleepwalking again. She walked to the window, slowly pulled the curtain back, and just stood there, like someone was on the other side and she was talking to them. I pulled her back to bed, but all she kept repeating was, "He said I'll come back." Her eyes were closed, but the words didn't sound like they came from someone dreaming. They sounded like a promise, or an order. By now, fear had settled inside me. I couldn't hold back anymore. I went online and started reading the old reviews of the beach house. And what I found chilled me to the core. One family wrote their daughter started sleepwalking and saw someone on the balcony. Another couple said they heard voices every night, and once, they saw a shadow watching them from outside their bedroom. Most of the guests left early. None of them told the full story, maybe out of fear. Weeks passed. I barely talked to Megan or Tyler after that, but there was a strange silence between us, like we were still carrying something that followed us back. One night, when I was alone in my apartment during a thunderstorm, I woke up to a strange chill in the air. I looked toward the balcony, and there, standing right outside the sliding glass door, was the same shadow. Tall, still, hazy, no face. No features, just presence. I couldn't move. It felt like someone had grabbed my lungs. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them, it was gone. But I knew it had been there. Something that wasn't just tied to the beach house anymore. Months have passed, but sometimes I still hear Megan's voice echo in my mind. He's not alone anymore. Tyler's not the same either. And Megan ... She's distant, quiet. And when she does speak, she stares toward the window, like someone's calling her. As for me, I sleep with my window shut tight every night. But I'm still scared. Scared that one day, he'll come back not just to watch, but to take. We may have left the beach house behind, but I'm sure of one thing: one of us didn't leave alone. And next time, he may not stay just a shadow. Claire was a 27-year-old work-from-home marketing professional who had grown tired of her routine. Life every day felt the same, every night alone, with her thoughts constantly racing. So she decided to take a break and spend a few peaceful days away from the city. She rented a small beachfront cabin through Airbnb in Bodega Bay, California. No neighbors, no traffic, just the sound of the ocean and the wind whistling through the air. For the first time in a while, Claire felt like she might finally find some peace. When she arrived, she was greeted by David, the host, around 32 or 33, quiet, a little odd, but polite. While showing her around the cabin, he kept repeating just one thing. "Keep the door shut. The wind's really strong here." The way he said it felt a little too serious, like he wasn't just talking about the wind. Claire didn't say anything, just smiled politely. The cabin was charming old wooden structure, large glass windows, and a strange quiet inside. At first, it felt peaceful, but slowly, the silence started to feel heavy. That first night, Claire couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., when the ocean outside had quieted down, she thought she heard footsteps coming up the stairs, slow, creaky steps, like someone was walking barefoot on the old wooden floor. She got up and opened the door, but no one was there. Just darkness, the sound of waves, and the wind howling faintly. She told herself it was probably the house settling, old wood creaking, nothing more. But deep down, an uneasy feeling was growing. The next morning, Claire took some pictures of the cabin to send to her family. Later, when she zoomed in on one of them, her heart skipped a beat. In the bedroom window, reflected in the glass, was a blurry face. It looked human, but the eyes were pitch black and hollow, and the mouth was wide open, like it was screaming, but no sound was coming out. Her hands started to shake. She immediately tried calling David, but it went straight to voicemail. She kept trying again and again, but the calls kept dropping, or there was no signal at all. She went outside to find a better signal, but her phone just kept saying, "No service." Claire was now fully scared. She decided she couldn't spend another night there. She packed quickly, ran to her car, and tried to start it, but it was completely dead. Not a single sound, nothing. It was like someone had removed the battery. No cell signal, no working car. She was stuck. She checked everything, headlights, horn, but the car remained silent. Exhausted and scared, she went back into the cabin. It was already evening, and the darkness inside felt even heavier than before. She decided to protect herself however she could. She set up her phone camera in the bedroom, pointing at the room from a corner, just in case something weird happened. Claire hoped she would laugh at herself in the morning, blaming it all on stress. But what she didn't know was the real horror hadn't even begun yet. That night, the air inside felt damp, like something heavy was hanging in it. The windows were shut, but it sounded like someone was scratching them from the outside, soft, slow scraping. Claire wrapped herself in a blanket and tried to calm down, but her breathing was fast. Then came the sound again, those same stairs creaking, ... Only faster this time, like someone was rushing up. The bedroom door was closed, but Claire felt like something was on the other side, pressing against it. The doorframe trembled slightly, like someone had put their hand on the other side. She glanced toward the phone camera. It was still recording. That gave her a bit of comfort. But what that camera was actually recording would become the most terrifying experience of her life the next morning. Because some things don't need to make noise to exist, they simply are. And maybe the cabin had always known Claire wouldn't stay long. Or worse, maybe it had always known she'd never leave. The next morning, Claire didn't wake up from sleep as much as she did from pure unease. It felt like something heavy had been pressing on her mind all night. The first thing she did was check her phone, the camera she had left recording overnight. Everything seemed normal at first. She was lying in bed. The room was quiet, nothing strange. But when the video reached 2:07 a.m., her fingers froze. A shadow passed in front of the screen, human-shaped but blurry, like it was made of black smoke. Claire held her breath. She fast-forwarded a bit, and suddenly the screen froze, not blurred, but as if the camera was focusing on something really close. And then, in the next frame, a face appeared right up close, like someone was leaning in toward the lens. The face looked human, but the eyes were strange white, hollow, like there were no pupils. Claire jumped back in panic, and her phone fell to the floor. She stopped the video, but now she knew whatever was in that cabin wasn't just outside anymore. It was close. Way too close. The fear inside Claire wasn't imaginary anymore. All day, she kept hearing faint scratching sounds coming from the walls, like something was trying to claw its way out or maybe in. At one point, she pressed her ear to the wall and heard whispering soft but clear, "They can't keep me locked in." Her hands started shaking as she backed away. Then she remembered the old nailed door in the bedroom corner. Scared, but curious, she slowly walked toward it. As she got closer, she heard soft crying coming from inside, but it didn't sound human. It was a broken, twisted sob that went straight to her core. She reached out to touch the door, and as soon as she did, something yanked it from the other side. That door had been nailed shut from the outside, so how could anything pull from inside? Claire screamed and stumbled backward, staring at the door. But it had gone silent again. Now even the mirrors in the cabin started to feel threatening. Claire often felt like someone was walking right behind her, and when she looked in the mirror, she'd see another figure behind her shadow. But when she turned around, there was no one there. One time, she clearly saw a tall shape standing behind her, no face, no eyes, just presence. But when she turned, it was just empty space. Slowly, Claire felt her mind unraveling. Things got worse when she suddenly received a message from David, the host. "If you've seen anything, leave. Don't ask why." Terrified, Claire replied immediately, but there was no response. When she tried to call, David's number was gone, deleted from her contacts. No chat history, like he never existed. Claire was breaking down. She sat in the living room under all the lights, trying to feel safe, but the fear never left. It felt like something behind every wall was watching her, something with eyes that had been closed for centuries, now wide open and fixed only on her. She became scared to even go to the bathroom, wouldn't step near the kitchen door, and every evening she'd start shaking before the sun even went down. The cabin was no longer just wood and walls. It had become something alive, something that silently watched her every move. And then came the worst night of all. Around 1 a.m., Claire sat on the living room sofa, exhausted but unable to sleep. She finally gathered the courage to go to the bathroom. The moment she looked in the mirror, she saw that same face, the one from the camera. But it wasn't in the mirror's reflection anymore. It was behind the glass, looking directly at her. It wasn't angry or sad, just blank. A hollow expression, like a lost soul staring into her. Claire screamed and ran out of the bathroom, grabbed her phone and bag, flung open the front door, and ran outside. Her breathing was rapid, her legs were shaking, but what she felt now was more than fear. It was the realization that she was no longer alone. She looked back at the cabin, and she could feel a shadow standing at the doorway, watching her, waiting, as if it knew she'd come back. And this time, maybe, she wouldn't leave. That night, Claire didn't think, she just ran. She didn't grab her shoes, didn't properly hold her bag, just yanked her phone and car keys, and bolted out of the cabin. Her breathing was sharp, her legs shaking, but the fear chasing her wasn't just fear anymore. It felt alive, like something real, something following her. The road was soaked from the night's rain, and her bare feet were getting cut on the gravel, but she didn't care. After nearly half a mile of running, she finally saw a dim light, a small local general store sign. Claire stumbled in, and the moment the doorbell chimed, she broke down crying. The elderly woman working inside was startled by her condition, rushed to help her, and gave her a chair and water. Trembling, Claire whispered, "I need the police. House. Something is wrong with that place." Police arrived shortly after. Claire told them everything: the cabin, the face on the camera, the nailed shut door, and the video that froze. They took her back to the cabin, but the moment they arrived, Claire felt an eerie silence, like the house knew she had brought others back. Inside, everything was perfectly in place, no ripped walls, no signs of the locked door, not even that heavy, strange air she had felt before. She pulled out her phone to show the video, opened her camera app, and the recording from that night was gone. No file, no trace, not even in the history. It was like the video never existed. The officers nodded politely, clearly not buying it. They finished their check, found nothing unusual, and told Claire it was probably just stress or imagination. But Claire's anxiety had now turned into something deeper. She thought maybe if she could contact David again, she'd find some clarity. She opened the Airbnb app, went to her past booking, but David's profile was gone, completely deleted. No chat history, no booking record. Airbnb support replied, "There's no account by that name in our system." Claire felt like her mind was spinning out of control. Had she stayed in a place owned by someone who no longer existed? The old woman from the store, the one who helped Claire, quietly said something to her. "The cabin you stayed in. It's been closed for over 20 years. Back in 1998, a man locked himself inside that room and took his own life." Claire's stomach dropped. The woman added, "They used to say, his spirit got trapped in the mirrors. He only shows himself to those who stay there alone." Suddenly everything clicked. The face in the camera, the figure in the mirrors, and that whisper. "They can't keep me locked in ... double quotes. Maybe that spirit had been trying to get out. And maybe it had already found a way through Claire. When Claire returned to her apartment, she wasn't the same. Something inside her had broken. She removed every mirror from her home, the bathroom, the dresser, even covered the front camera on her phone with tape. But still, the fear didn't go away. She kept looking at the walls like something was peeking through from behind. She had become a stranger in her own home, talking without words, awake without sleep. Doctors gave her anxiety and depression meds, but Claire knew this wasn't a mental illness. This was something else, something no science could explain. Then, one night, while Claire was half asleep on the couch, her phone turned on by itself. The screen lit up, and that same face appeared again. Closer. Clearer. Claire's scream caught in her throat. It wasn't on the screen anymore. It looked like it was inside, trying to come out from behind the glass. Those eyes were staring right into her soul, and she could feel its breath near the phone's mic. She threw the phone across the room in panic, but the screen stayed on. And the face was still there. Maybe that cabin still stands there in Bodega Bay, silent and breathing in the cold wind. And maybe someday, someone else will show up for a peaceful little getaway, unaware that they might touch that door. The one that was nailed shut, but never truly sealed. Claire's story doesn't really end, because the last line still echoes in Claire's own voice. "I never thought a weekend getaway would introduce me to someone who might now be waiting behind every screen, behind every mirror, just watching me." Mark was taking his two kids, 10-year-old Sophie and 8-year-old Ethan, on their very first trip alone together. After his divorce, this vacation was his chance to rebuild a deeper bond with his kids. He found an old wooden beachfront house on Airbnb in Siesta Key, Florida. The place looked a bit aged, but it was right next to the ocean and seemed perfect for a quiet family getaway. When Mark checked in, the host explained the basics and casually mentioned one thing before leaving. "That room on the side is locked. It's just storage. Nothing to worry about." Mark didn't think much of it, but Sophie stared at that door a second longer than usual. The first night went fine. They ate, watched a movie, and went to bed early. But sometime in the night, Sophie woke up and said, "Dad, I heard whispering from that locked room." Mark, half asleep, told her, "Old houses make noises, wood creaks, wind moves through cracks. It's normal." But Sophie looked truly disturbed. Ethan didn't say anything, but even in sleep, his eyes looked uneasy. The next night, Ethan wet the bed, something he hadn't done in years. When Mark asked what happened, Ethan just said, I woke up and saw someone standing by the door, just watching me. His eyes filled with tears, like he had seen something no kid should ever see. Mark hugged him and tried to calm him down, but a strange uneasiness had started creeping into his own mind too. Sophie had gone quiet every night and kept staring at the locked door. Then one evening, out of nowhere, she said, "Dad, he knows." "My name." Mark froze. "Who?" he asked. Sophie whispered, "The man in the room." He said, "Sophie, don't go outside this time." Mark started paying closer attention to the house. He noticed the locked room wasn't really locked. From the outside, it was more like it had been sealed shut from the inside, with a basic handle and old screws. On the hallway walls, there were faint scratches like kids had once drawn on them with crayons. He even spotted the start of a name, half scratched in. So, maybe Sophie? He didn't say anything to the kids but set up a baby monitor in the hallway and a small security camera facing the door, just in case. He told the kids it was just for safety. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Mark checked the camera footage out of habit. Most of it looked normal dim light. Stillness, nothing strange. But then, the door handle on the locked room twitched slightly. Mark watched closely. The door nudged open ever so slightly, like someone inside was slowly pushing on it. Then nothing. The house went silent again. But Mark's chest tightened. There wasn't supposed to be anyone inside that room. Or maybe there was. Mark wanted his kids to have the kind of childhood vacation nights where fear only lived in bedtime stories. But whatever was happening in that beach house was way beyond just stories. One night, the hallway camera captured something that was no longer just scary, it was terrifying. At exactly 2:33 a.m., the locked door, the one the host had called just storage, slowly creaked open without a sound. For just 1 second, something appeared in the frame. A tall, extremely thin, hunched shadow, human-like, but off. Like its bones weren't where they were supposed to be. The next moment, the door shut again. Mark's blood ran cold. He didn't wait. He grabbed the kids and rushed to the hallway. The door was closed again, but now it had tiny scratch marks all over it, like small fingernails clawing from the inside, trying to get out. Mark's throat dried. He pulled the kids close and looked at Sophie. She was crying, shaking uncontrollably. Ethan clung to her leg and kept repeating the same thing over and over. "Don't open the door, Daddy. He's watching me from the crack." His face had gone completely pale. The next afternoon, a horrible, rotten smell started coming from near that room, like wet, decaying cloth, mixed with something even worse. Mark checked the hallway wall and realized if the light hit just right, you could see names carved under layers of old paint, children's names. One name was completely visible, Sophie, same spelling, same handwriting. He stared at it for a while, frozen. He had gone far beyond fear or confusion at this point. Sophie had stopped speaking much. Her eyes had this blank, distant look. Then one night, Mark woke up to a soft sound, Sophie walking in the hallway, silently, like she was sleepwalking. She went straight to the locked door and just stood there. Mark rushed over and pulled her back. Her body was ice cold, but she was whispering something. Mark leaned in and she said, "He said I was the last one." Now Mark had no doubt something was there. Someone was in that house. He decided they'd leave first thing in the morning, but that night wasn't over. Ethan was gone from his bed. Mark tore through the house, calling his name. Sophie was already awake and crying. He finally found Ethan near the basement corner, sitting motionless, like a statue. His eyes were open, his face blank. Mark grabbed him and asked, "What are you doing here?" Ethan slowly turned his head and, without blinking, said just one thing. "He told me not to tell you anything." That's when Mark knew this wasn't just a haunted house. This thing, it didn't want them to leave. Mark was completely broken now. He didn't need answers anymore. He just needed to get his kids out of that house as fast as possible. The next morning, he didn't waste a single second. He rushed to wake Sophie and Ethan, packed their bags in a panic, and got ready to leave. But as he turned from the living room toward the hallway, his heart stopped. The room that had always been locked was now wide open. No noise, no force. Just as if someone had quietly said, "You can come in now." Mark's breath caught in his throat. Cold air drifted out from the darkness beyond the door. Sophie and Ethan stood behind him, Ethan's face pale, Sophie's eyes locked onto the open room like she was seeing an old friend. Mark stepped forward, trembling, and peeked inside. There was no furniture, no light, but the walls. The walls were disturbing. Covered in children's drawings, stick figures, scared faces, and right in the center, one large black figure with its head bowed and no eyes. Below it, in shaky, childlike handwriting, were the words, "He comes at night." Mark felt like the walls were watching him, like the spirits of those kids were still trapped there. But the most terrifying moment came when he saw something. In the corner, something moving. A shadow, a shape. Slow, but alive. He didn't wait. He grabbed Sophie and Ethan's hands and ran as fast as he could. Ethan kept glancing back like someone was calling him. As soon as they were outside, Mark called the local police. He told them everything, the drawings, the shape in the room, Ethan's strange behavior, and what Sophie had said. When the police came to check the room, they found no one inside. But there was a sliding panel hidden in the wall. When they opened it, it revealed a narrow, dark space. Like someone had built a secret room inside the walls. And on those hidden walls, names were carved, about 14 children's names. Faint, but still readable. One name stopped Mark cold. Sophie. Same spelling as his daughter's. His entire body went cold. As the investigation continued, police uncovered old records from the 1970s. The house had once belonged to a family whose children had mysteriously disappeared, one by one. The case was never solved. There were theories, a kidnapper, a hidden criminal, but nothing was ever proven. Eventually, the house was shut down. Until the Airbnb era reopened its doors. Mark returned to the city with his kids, but peace didn't follow. Sophie had changed. She stayed silent most of the day, avoided eye contact, and would sometimes stare at the wall and smile to herself. One day, Mark gently asked her, "Sophie, what are you thinking about?" She simply said, "He remembers me now." That was the moment Mark realized whatever had been in that room, it wasn't just in that house anymore. It had followed Sophie home. Sometimes late at night, Mark hears whispers coming from Sophie's room. One night, he slowly opened the door and found her sitting with her back to him, facing the wall, mumbling something. When he reached out to touch her hand, she whispered, "Don't touch me. He gets angry." Mark's eyes filled with tears, but he had no answers left. All he had wanted was a simple vacation. Now his daughter was trapped in a darkness he couldn't pull her out of. The story isn't over. Because to this day, Mark still leaves every light on in his room before going to sleep. And sometimes when he looks in the mirror, he sees a small shadow standing behind him, smiling. I don't know who or what it was, but whatever was, in that room it recognized Sophie, and I'm afraid it's never going to let her go. So that was our story for today. 3 creepy true beach house horror stories. 3 different locations, 3 real experiences, and a kind of fear that may never stop following the people who lived through them. These stories made one thing clear. As peaceful as the ocean waves may seem, the houses hidden along the shorelines can be just as mysterious and deeply unsettling. Sometimes it's a shadow, sometimes a locked door, and sometimes a face that only shows up on camera. If you found these stories creepy, make sure to subscribe to Chilling Talks right now. Because here, we share stories that feel real, echo in your mind, and keep you up at night. And next time you book a beach house, maybe look behind you before pulling back the curtains. Like the video, share it, and let us know in the comments which story freaked you out the most. Oh, and wear headphones while listening, because the scariest sounds are often the quietest ones. Chilling Talks, where fear doesn't just stay in stories. It becomes something you feel.